Hey, I'm Scottie. Thanks for joining me in this tutorial where I'm going to show you how to draw children correctly. So before we get on to the example here, I'm going to go through some of the proportions that you really need to know. So working out the proportions of a child is a question I get quite often, and my patrons were asking me the difference between the proportions of an adult and a child. Well, I don't think many people have done a whole lot of tutorials on this, and there's a reason. It's because it's quite tricky, because as a child grows at each age, they might have a different proportion as they grow. It's much easier to have one proportion for an adult because you've stopped growing there. So I've studied the Loomis method, gone back to my books and had a look and tried to summarize what's one proportion that you could use to summarize a small child. So I've picked out between 1 and 4 years old, and I've squished these proportions into one thing to remember because I think it's too hard to remember a proportion for every single age group. So what I wanted to show you first is the difference between the average adult height and proportions, and a child between 1 and 4. This is my average here. So with an adult, we mostly use the proportion of 8 heads high. With a 1 to 4 year old, on average, I worked out that it's pretty much 5 heads. So if you're not a baby, if you've just developed to a toddler and then you've gone to a small child, then it's about 5 heads high. Now this isn't 5 heads compared to an adult, so it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not up to here. It's actually 5 heads compared to the head that you're drawing. So if you're drawing a 1-year-old, you can draw it a bit smaller than a 4-year-old, and you'll get someone that's a bit shorter. Child's head here is about 2/3 of the adult's head. So that's the general proportion that I've looked at here. In terms of my dot method with drawing people, I've done a lot of tutorials on how to draw a person using this dot method. The way I draw it with an adult is to do the head first, then we drop down a little bit for the neck, we do 2 dots for the shoulders, and then we go down 3 heads, 1, 2, 3 to the crotch, put 2 dots there, and then 1, 2, 3 to above the ankles, or the sock line as I like to call it. And then we add the feet, the feet and the shoes there. With a child, we can draw the head, drop down just a little bit for the shoulders, and then go down 2 heads, so not 3 heads, 2 heads to the crotch, and then 2 heads to the bottom of the feet. So that's how I would remember it. Okay, so what's the next thing you need to know? Now we're going to be drawing figures here, so these faces will be a bit smaller. We're not going to be doing too much detail, but I need to show you 2 important points for drawing a child's face in proportion. So this looks quite complicated, trying to put lots of information into one simple template, but we have the Loomis head here, and what we do is we go down to the hairline, and then between the hairline and the chin for an adult, we divide it into 3. And that is usually on the brow line and the bottom of the nose. So it's the same with a child, but that proportion of that hairline comes down a lot further. So I've put here, it's 1/4 of the total height of the head. 1/4 you come down, you start that hairline, but then we do the same thing. We go down 3, 1, 2, 3. So the brow and the bottom of the nose still break up that face, but the face is a lot smaller proportion to the total height of the head compared to an adult. So this part here I've said is 1/7, about 1/7. You never measure that, you just have a guess. But you can see, we've got to keep it in mind when we draw a face for a child, we start that hairline down quite low. The second most important feature of drawing a face on a child is where the eyes are and the lips. So with an adult, for the eyes, we come up 2/3 to where the eyes are. That's the corner of the eyes. And with the lips, we come up 2/3 for the corners of the lips, or the middle, the split between the lips. But for a child, it comes up about halfway. So we don't go up 2/3 here, we go up about halfway. As the child grows, that proportion goes up to where it's 2/3. So if you're leaning towards a 4 or 5-year-old, you might lift that slightly. And then the lips, again, we go up about halfway where the lips are. So and as they grow, once again, it goes further up to that 2/3 mark. So that's some general points you really need to know how you can set up that structure. Some side notes for some facial features. I recommend when you're drawing the child to draw this jawline really round and full. There's a lot more angle to a adult's face. So make sure you've got really round cheeks. Also, you notice that the eyes are a lot further apart compared to the nose. Usually the nose, that gap between the eyes, is about the width of the nose. But for a child, the nose is quite small, and that gap between the eyes is quite large. And the actual eye, Loomis explains this in great detail, but I was trying to show here that the eye is cut off by the top eyelid and the bottom eyelid. But here, on a child, you can see a lot more of that iris. It's quite a big iris. And then the lips, with the lips we can see more of an exaggerated curve. It's a lot flatter with an adult. And the top lip is exaggerated, so we can actually draw a line over that whole top lip. I usually recommend not to draw too much on the lips, so I just draw a tiny little line up the top here. But for a child, it might be more, it might look better if you draw that whole line across the top. And also on the side view, the lips come out more. So with an adult, they come out a bit, but with a child, they come out quite a lot. The next thing I want to mention is that the bridge of the nose. See the bridge here? Comes up to about there, in line with the eye, and it's quite high. But with a child, it's very flat through there. So it's quite rounded and it comes a lot lower. The eyebrows are a little bit thinner and more clear than an adult. And the ears. We can see with an adult, the ear goes from the brow to the bottom of the nose. But with a child, the ears vary quite a lot. So Loomis was saying that ears vary between babies quite dramatically. So we can see here that the ears come a little bit lower than the bottom of the nose compared to an adult. But depending on the baby and the child, I think I would have had quite big ears that came down quite low. But other people have little tiny ears that are in, or some are sticking out. So it really depends on the child there. But just have a look out for those ears when you're drawing the reference. Okay, there's some general pointers. You might need to come back to this when you're drawing a face if you're having trouble, because there's a lot of information there, but I tried to summarize it for you. One last thing with the structure of how you sketch a face. So with an adult, we find the hairline and the chin. And then I like to divide that into 3 with 2 dots either side of the brow for an adult. That's what we've been doing. But then with a child, just make sure you get that point for the hairline, as we said, a quarter of the total height down, and then we do the same thing, divide into 3 with those 2 dots. You can see here. You can do it here as well, and on the side view. And then the next step would be to do the eyes and the mouth. So usually we come up 2/3, put 2 dots, and then draw the eyes. And we come up 2/3 and put these 2 dots, which are more in the middle of the eyes. And we can see here we have to go back a bit. It comes quite far back. These points are more in line, so that the corners of the lips are more in line with the corners of the eyes. You can see here we put 2 dots, but more like halfway. So we're not going up 2/3, it's about halfway there. And then same here, we go nearly halfway. That's where you put it. So it depends on the child you're sketching. That's the average proportion that we can look at. Okay, there's all the information for you. I hope that made sense. So let's start out with this reference right here of a little boy holding a balloon. And it's nice because it's front on, so we can do a lot of these proportions. So please sketch in pencil if you want to get these proportions first and rub them out and get them better. I'm just going to go straight to ink because I find that helps me create a loose sketch. So here, what we're going to do is just start to draw the head. So we've got the shape of the top of the head like this, and then it comes down, and you've got some nice hair. So that's the shape I'm looking for. And I'm looking at that shape. It's like an oval of his head. So I think there will be about the chin. It doesn't really matter if you don't get it perfectly right. It's just loose sketching. So the side of the head, just looking at that nice shape there that we have, and that side there. Where would the hairline be? I'll just refer to this reference right here. So I said before, it goes about a quarter of the total height of the head. So let's go down a quarter. So it's about halfway, a quarter. So that would be where the hairline would be. And therefore we need to put the 2 dots between those points. So we'll have the brow here and the nose here. So it's a lot lower than I would have on an adult head. So now we can draw the brow, like this. Draw a little brow, and now the nose, and remember it's a little button nose, so we're just focusing on those bottom details mostly. So just like this, just the bottom shapes, just like that. It's almost just a line across the bottom that's a bit wavy, and two sides for the nostril. If you want to add a little dot there and there, that can give that little shadow where the nose comes in, just here, the nostril. Now with the eyes, remember that we come up a lot lower than we do on the adults. So let's go about here, so angling just slightly here. Go across the same distance. Okay, and now we've got the positions where the eyes go. So let's draw that. So I'm going to make these eyes slightly bigger than they are in the reference. Just like that, leaving a little bit of gap on the side. And then we add in the iris, this, and this. Trying to make them the same size. Now we have the eyes, now the mouth. So we come up about halfway, and the mouth, it's a lot narrower. It sort of fits between the two corners of the eyes, the inner corners of the eyes. So give a nice corners of those lips, and we'll go up the top so we don't miss out on that top lip. We'll give him a lip like that, and then the bottom in there, and then a little line there for the underneath the bottom lip. So add a bit more darkness to that top eyelid. And the bridge of the nose, if you draw a little line here and here with a child, that can help show that bridge of the nose is a bit lower. Now let's draw the hairline. So it's got a nice big fringe coming down there. The ear is a bit lower, comes down the neck, turns away like that. So trying to get that round position there. It probably comes in a bit closer to the eye here, curves like that. Okay, and now we can add in that neck. So we've got the head, but now we're going to draw the proportions of the body. So now let's add in some of those dots that we're talking about. We can put a dot here for the shoulder and a dot here for the other shoulder. So just coming down just slightly for a child, it's not very far. And then we've got to measure that head. So I do it with my fingers just roughly, so it comes down to about there and here. So 1, 2, and 1, 2. So that's where the legs would attach to the body, and then we can come down another 2. 1, 2. Okay, and then this leg, it comes out slightly, and it's a bit further away, so we can put it about there. So now we have 6 dots just like we have here, and that shoe should come down to that point. Now we've got a loose structure for us to sketch around. So let's come down just from observation. It's good just to have those in mind. As proportions, so the elbow would be somewhere here, and then the other elbow comes up here, so just shorter than a head, about here, and then the wrist is about there. So I'm measuring that out. That's that. The shirt comes to there and then comes out. I'll draw this part here, so we're comparing shapes now. Drawing that shape, overall shape of the hand. Like that. And then that shirt comes down. So pretty much, I'd say on the crotch, that line would come across like this. Continues up. Nice wrinkles. Okay, and then the hand, if you'd like to, you can split it, do 3 dots, and then that's one finger that goes out, Another finger like that. Now the wrist, we have the dot here, so we went 1, 2, and they're just about a head length. Let's draw. I'm just looking at that really nice shape of the hand, the way he's got it, his hand pinching that balloon. Just looking at the silhouette. Come down like that. Okay, and comparing the heights, maybe I drew it a bit higher than what it is. So let's keep that balloon a bit lower. Okay. Once again, let's look at the overall shape of those fingers, not each individual finger first. And then we can add in some of the lines for the fingers. Okay. It's just an impression. So there's the little balloon. Okay, perhaps his hand there is a little bit high. Maybe if I reduce that finger down. Okay, and now the pants. So I come down the knee, would be about halfway there, and then come down, and I've got to remember the shoes here. I'm just looking at that silhouette once again. And on this side. And around like this. And the shoe, got to get that around the heel, then in, and then around that front toe area, and then curve back up. This way down to those toes, around the toes, in, and then around the heel. And these straps. And now some more details. We've got the pocket, another pocket here, heaps more wrinkles there that are nice. So come up there. Okay, and then with the hair we can add a few more strands there. Goes up to this point. So here are the final sketches from all the references that I've done today. So I have a few different ages and varying poses. We did the same structure with the head. Worked out the head height, whatever that was, and then measured down 2, and then measured down 2. Measure down 2 to the crotch, measure down 2 to the bottom of the feet. As they get slightly older, you can adjust as you go, so this feet might be a bit lower, but in general, that's the proportion that I work to. With the face, you can see the face here, we've got full cheeks, full cheeks, full cheeks here, and a little chin. The top lip has been outlined, whereas I don't usually do that in my adult sketches. And also with the irises. The irises in these ones are very obvious. They're very big, which make them look like babies. The ear, quite a big ear, drops down below where the lips are, which is another feature. And then structuring them as I sketched, we just did the main shapes. So main shapes around there. If you'd like to sketch along with me with all these and do the painting as well on top, the watercolor, then you can check that out on Patreon. We've got the full version there with all the references you can download and those templates which might help you to sketch along. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.